This is Dianne Andrews in Black and White. The issues you don't want to talk about. The arts and entertainment you need to know. And now here's your host, Dianne Andrews.
Thanks for coming back to Dianne Andrews in Black and White. As you know, I do a series called Shine a Light. And today I'm doing something under the Shine a Light series called Finding a Purpose. There'll be 2 or 3 different interviews you'll see of different people that are going to come in on this show. The first I have today is a dear friend of mine named Kalisha Francis. Kalisha is a registered nurse whose license are on hold now because she was caught driving drunk. This is not her first time driving drunk. This is not her first time doing drugs. This has been or alcohol. Mm-hmm. She came from an abusive family, specifically your father was abusive to you. And your mother was married to him for 18 years.
Exactly.
She has 3 children with him. And you left home at 16. You got pregnant, I think, left home, didn't get married, and then ended up marrying your husband of your daughters. And he did not like your son too much, you said, right?
No,
what
he
happened?
did not. He was very, 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 very much abusive, more mentally abusive than anything. And I think it's the fact that I didn't have a father figure, because my daddy, you know, he was hard on us, you know, he beat us with extension cards and everything else like that, you know.
Did he beat your mother also?
They would always fight. They would fight back and forward. They would fight. My mom would fight back. You know, it was always a battle. We had a dysfunctional family, very dysfunctional family. And
never any sexual abuse?
Oh, no, no sexual
just
abuse.
Physical.
No sexual
Which
abuse.
Which is bad enough.
Yes, and just because I didn't have that father figure, I went and looked for a man to be a father to me. And of course, I was a dropout out of school. In the 11th grade, I became pregnant with my son. And immediately, the guy that I met, he was much older than I was, about 5 years older. He taught me how to drive. He got me to go back to get my GED. I became a CNA, a certified.
Oh, he caused you to, he pushed you to do something, to make something out of your life.
He pushed me.
That was good.
Yeah, because his dad was a lawyer, and he, you know, he was actually in law school before I met him. So he kind of like pushed me, and that's what I needed that I didn't have with my father. And so I wound up getting my GED. I got my certified nursing assistant license, and then I became an RN, and I've been a registered nurse for the last 14 years.
You went to the Lake Nursing School?
I went to Our
Lady
of the Lake.
Nursing
Exactly,
School.
exactly.
But when did you start? Were you drinking back at 16? Were you drinking and drugging?
No. I started drinking and drugging when I was like about 32 years of age, when I got my divorce from my husband. Because of the abusive relationship, the mental abuse, it just wasn't a conducive environment for me and my son. I allowed my son to go back with his grandmother on the father's side, and I stayed. I was getting ready to leave, but I became pregnant with my daughter. So I stayed in the relationship. And
but now, he became jealous of you and your daughter's relationship. Her father did, you told me.
It was very jealous. Oh my God, he was so jealous when she would pay more attention to me. And he had a lot of issues I find out later in his life that he went through was the reason from his childhood, the reason why he was the way he was today.
Was his father abusive? Was his
I
father
believe that
jealous?
he went through some type of abuse in his family. I'm not mental and maybe physical as well.
You know, I found that in doing domestic violence, rape shows, everything, a lot of children pattern after their parents. Whatever they did, they do it to the next person instead of getting better if they don't get help.
If they don't get help, and I could have been, and I was a product of that. You know, I was predisposed already because my daddy was an alcoholic. And with that relationship, when I divorced my husband, my husband kept me inside, and I felt like when we got our divorce, I was like, party, you know, I'm free. You know, and I got it mixing with the wrong crowd, the wrong people. I became a nurse, and then I wound up drinking and drugging, and then consequences.
Did your husband drink and drug?
No.
What about the guy your son was for, your first relationship?
Well, he would drink, but he wasn't an alcoholic, you know.
So you did worse than your husband. You were out there drinking and driving both your relationships.
I was the one that's drinking because when I disconnected from the relationship, my son's father. So eventually, I got into the RN. Eventually, my consequences for my action got me into the RNP program. And when I got into the RNP program, I didn't see that I had a problem.
Recovering nurse program.
Yeah, it's the recovery nurse program.
For people who have been having substance abuse problems. Yeah.
And I went through that. It was a 3-year contract. I went through that. I didn't work the program. I didn't feel like I had a problem. I didn't think my problem existed. So I was a dry drunk. And a dry drunk is somebody who's not actually working the program. I mean, going to your meetings, meeting with your sponsor, actually working the 12-step Alcohol Anonymous, and being a part of that community and that network. I never did that. I just skated by. So upon me completing, I already knew I was going to drink anyway.
You knew it. I'm just going through the motions, but something very traumatic happened to you in 2013.
Exactly.
Tell us about your son.
It was 2014.
Was it 14?
Yeah. It was last year, May 31st. 2 months right before me getting out of the RNP program, my son died. Jai died. He was on his way going to work that Friday morning, rainy morning, and he
worked at the plants, didn't he?
He worked at the
river.
plant. Yeah. He hydroplaned and instantly he hit a tree and he instantly died. Of course, at that time, that's to show you how cunning and baffling the power of addiction is, because I didn't just get back on drugs and alcohol. I waited 2 months after I got out, and immediately within a month I was back on drugs.
And very interesting, when I asked you, you said I would have drank anyway whether my son had died or not.
Yes, because
I was waiting until that day I could get out of that program and get my license back.
Exactly, because I wasn't willing, and I wasn't willing, and I wasn't obedient, and I didn't work the program at all. And now I thank God that I have gotten.
I've seen a change because I know Kalisha, and I've seen a change in you this time, because this time you came after, because you fractured. She had an accident in December of last year, and in that accident she hit another vehicle drunk, and you had marijuana in your system, or cocaine.
I had marijuana. No, it was marijuana in my car, but it wasn't in your system.
It was in my car.
Alcohol and marijuana was in my car.
Okay.
And then I also had cocaine in my system.
I wanted to show the tattoo, because I'd asked Kalisha, because she's not a tattoo girl, and tell them what the tattoo means to you.
The tattoo is my son Jai, is his name, and I never believe in putting tattoos all over my body, but this is my son. When he died, I immediately put his name on my arm, and because of the wreck and because of the consequences for my action, I had a spiritual awakening, and now I'm able to work this program. I accept that I have a problem and that my life was unmanageable. I was powerless over drugs and alcohol, and my life had truly become unmanageable. And this time, I got the program. I'm gonna work my program. I just got out of outpatient.
Now you went to sober house after you went to a facility after the hospital after your fractured foot.
After that, I went 73 days inpatient. Then I went outpatient, and now I'm actually working the program, my RNP recovery nurse program. So I'm very excited that I'm in this.
And you're going to AA. You go to AA meetings what, twice a week, 3 times a week?
I do AA meetings every day. Just about every day. And I'm just excited that I got.
You didn't bring the book?
AA book?
Yeah, that's okay.
If you ask me something about it, I would know.
Yeah, she's got a big, like a Bible, your Bible that you have.
Yes, I have an AA book, and I have my meditation. I do prayer and meditations in the morning. I work the steps. I have a sponsor. I have
12-step program.
Yeah, it's a 12-step program, and the main thing, the most important step of the entire 12-step is step 1. I admit that my life has become powerless. You know, I admit that I'm powerless, and my life has become unmanageable. And I was powerless over drugs and alcohol, and my life had became unmanageable.
So, Kalisha, you were on Adderall at one time.
I was on Adderall.
For bipolar, for ADHD?
No,
what were you on for?
I was on Adderall for ADHD, attention deficit disorder, when I was young, and as I was growing up. And I think it had a lot to do with my childhood and the dysfunctionalness. And I think. And my attention span was short because
you had attention deficit disorder.
Yeah, it was, and you know, it's just to show you that you can change your childhood. You can change it, and you know, people.
What do you think is different this time for you? What has made you find a purpose? What is your purpose in life now?
I believe that my purpose is in life at this particular moment is to be an RN, what God ordained me to be. speak the word, carry the message with AA as well, and be a nurse to be a service to others. Also, I want to get into addiction, the disease of addiction, and help people who are addicts, as well as being compassionate and introducing them to a higher power, which is my God, and taking care of them at the same time, getting 3 in 1. If you're if you're suffering with an addiction, or if you're having a problem, you know, just with life itself. I mean, just having a diverse of experience. I believe my trials.
I saw your book. I mean, anybody could take that book. You don't have to be an alcoholic to take it. But we're going to have to wrap it up. Kalisha, I think it's been very informative for people to tell you how wonderful AA can be. But you have to make it up in your mind and make it up that I want to be better. And that's what this story is all about. Kalisha, being better.
Thank you.
It's the 2015 Gala on the Bluff, and we're partying with the purpose.
The Southern University College of Business presents the 13th annual Gala on the Bluff, featuring Harry Anderson and band, Michael Ward, Brick, and Midnight Star.
Join us Homecoming Friday, October 16th at the Bella Baton Rouge Casino Hotel.
The 2015 Gala on the Bluff. Party with the purpose.
For ticket info, call us at 383-0877.
My best friend from Houston, Texas, always told me, and still does, that I want to save the world. And I guess I have my own forum now to try to make that happen. My name is Dianne Andrews. The name of the show is Dianne Andrews in Black and White. And what that really means was there's a left and a right, a yin and a yang, a black and a white of an issue. And between all the varying points of view, there's shades of gray. And I hope we can bring people to the middle where the shades of gray are. Dianne Andrews in Black and White is going into 4 million homes. We do shows on bullying. We've done 2 on bullying, one with the superintendent of schools up in Zachary, the #1 school district for 9 years in the state of Louisiana. I've done stuff on addictions, from weight to drugs to smoking, that will be coming on soon. I believe living a purposeful life is the key to success. And success without happiness, you're not successful. My mother was the strongest person I've ever met. She was more resilient than her doctor said than any patient he ever had. When I was in freshman in college, my mother got hit by a car walking down the street about a month and a half after my father died. So that was a lot for a person to take. And when I walked into her room, the first thing she told me was, Dianne, go back to college, I'm okay. It took her 7 years to ever walk again. And she went from crutches to the brace, like on the leg, the old iron ones that the polio patients had, to a cane. But over time, she debilitated and she ended up with an amputation. My mother and father, especially my mother, always made me know that I could do anything that I wanted to do. So that's where I get my strength from. One thing I'd like to say, the show has made me a better person, because I see some things that I could have done better. I see some things that I learn about the world and about me as a person and about how other people are affected by various situations. So it makes me better. I've always had the desire and the determination to fulfill what my dreams were. I've written 2 books. I do motivational calendars. Every year I've written 500 motivational quotes. And my favorite is, happiness is, after everything you've tried, finding a place where there's love inside. Because at the end, that's what we're all looking for, is love. Dianne Andrews in Black and White is a ministry for me. It is a passion to help the world. Because if we don't help others, what are we here for? When I do domestic violence, yeah, I can have the person over the government agency that does work with domestic violence. I had an attorney there, but I want that ex-pimp who I had. I want people to see why he did it and why he reformed from doing it, and that there is a light at the end of the tunnel for everyone, no matter what your problem is. When I do things like ISIS, Islamic State, I want people who are so uninformed of what's really going on in the world. When I bring in a Muslim, I bring in a law student, I bring in a veteran from the Army to tell us what's going on, and they may differ in their beliefs. But at the end of the day, you make the decision on what your belief will be. It may not change what you believe in, but hopefully it shows you a different point of view. Dianne Andrews in Black and White. Thanks for coming back to us today. I think we have in part of the Finding Your Purpose program, we have someone very interesting and very powerful who will bring you a path and show you how his path had led him to his purpose. I have with us today, he is now the Southwest Regional Minister for the Nation of Islam, Brother Robert Muhammad, who formerly was born in New York area, upstate New York. He moved to Harlem and then went down to Hampton Institute at the time, which is now Hampton University in Virginia, and majored in political science. He was not with the Nation of Islam at that time. He was still trying to find his purpose. He thought he wanted to be a lawyer, and he went down and worked for a paralegal company and realized, hey, this is not what I want to do. So while he moved to Houston in 1994, he worked in the Jesse Jackson campaign and became a part of then the Nation of Islam. Thank you for being here with me today. Tell me about your journey and how did you know that this was your purpose? To be in the Nation of Islam. Now you represent 5 states in the South, including Texas and Louisiana. What are the other 3 states?
Is Oklahoma, Arkansas, and New Mexico.
How did you know, okay, paralegal, you ruled out political science, and when you went to work on the 1984 campaign for Jesse Jackson, you joined the Nation. Did you feel at home? Is that how you knew this was what I was born to do?
I had no intention of being part of the movement. I just went to help Reverend Jesse Jackson based upon Minister Farrakhan's request that we rally around his campaign in 1984. I had met Minister Farrakhan when I was in college in 1976. Growing up in Harlem, I had the opportunity to observe the work of Minister Malcolm X and the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan when they were the ministers over Muhammad Mosque No. 7 in New York.
Were you religious then?
I was very spiritual, religious in this sense. I grew up in the Catholic Church. I was an altar boy. And in 8th grade, I asked Father Gorman, I said, Father Gorman, can I be a priest and marry Mary Edwards, who was my girlfriend in 7th grade? He said, no, my son. I said, well, that's not my purpose. So going.
You already knew then I want to have a wife, right?
Absolutely.
That's right.
So at that particular point in time, my family, we moved from New York, we moved to New Jersey, and then I went to college from there. Again, meeting Minister Farrakhan in '76, I lost track of him. I really admired him, but there was no Nation of Islam from '75 to '77. But I didn't know he was rebuilding the Nation of Islam until I saw him on television promoting the candidacy of Reverend Jesse Jackson. I went to just help Reverend Jackson in his request to become a nominee of the Democratic Party. That's where I ran into the brothers of Muhammad Mosque No. 45, the Nation of Islam, in Houston, Texas, where I was residing. And they had set up, I would call it an unauthorized table where they were selling bean pies and papers and things of that nature. And that's when I hooked up with them. And I was in defense of Reverend Jackson against the forces that were arrayed against him within the Democratic Party. And many of the brothers there that were Muslim were saying, who is this brother? At that time, I was smoking a pack of Newports a day and doing other things.
Were you married at the time?
Yes, I was. And unfortunately, at that particular time, because I went to the Democratic Convention that was in Houston, the Texas Democratic Convention, I was given time off from my job. But then they called me the day of the convention, say you need to come into work.
Were you a paralegal then?
No, I was working in banking.
Okay.
I was a new account supervisor. And so at that particular point in time, I said, no, you gave me the time off. I scheduled the vacation time. I can't come in. People are dependent on me because I'm a delegate for Jesse Jackson and I've got to be there to vote. Well, when I came back to work that Monday, they fired me from my job.
You had no job. Right?
I had no job. So what happened to me is that in a way, God has a way of breaking you down so that you can say, he can say, you know, be still and know that I am God. And in doing that, then I began listening to a Sunday broadcast and it was Minister Farrakhan's voice and it inspired me. And then I got a call from a brother named Carlos Muhammad, who now resides in Phoenix, Arizona. He called me, said, brother, would you like to visit the mosque? I visited the mosque. I joined that summer of 1984. I went on to get my X in 1986, and then I became the student minister of Muhammad Mosque No. 45 and 87.
What does X mean in the Nation of Islam? Let's educate the people out here.
Well, I was born Robert Brooks,
Right.
but Brooks is not an African name. It's a name given to those who held us in captivity. It's what we call our slave name. So we replace it with what is a holy name, which an X is that, because when you look at X X stands for Kai in Greek, or Christ. So it's a holy name. So in other words, what I've done is that I've replaced the slave name with a holy name, or until the time when Minister Farrakhan or the Honorable Elijah Muhammad would grant me a holy name. And in this time, Minister Farrakhan in 1987 gave me the name Muhammad. So I'm known as Robert Muhammad. At that time, I was Robert 2X, because there was a Robert who had an X before me. So he was Robert X, I was Robert 2X.
XX, with 2X, you don't say XX, you say Robert 2X.
Yes, ma'am.
And that's the way it works in the entire Nation of Islam when people come into the nation.
That's correct.
They get an X before they get the holy name.
Before they get the holy name. In some cases, they get the holy name, but it just depends on the circumstance. But the normal process is that we give up our last names, we take on the X, and then at that point, we actually petition for a name of God, for a holy name.
See, I never knew that you went to an X first. I didn't know that. That's interesting. So now you're in school now, working on have your master's in urban planning and working on your PhD, correct?
That's correct.
And also urban planning.
Yes.
Tell me, why are you going back to school and you're still you're over 5 states. How much time do you have? Are you doing it online, or are you doing it in the classroom?
No, I finished all my classwork.
For the PhD?
For a PhD. I'm working on my dissertation, and by the end of this year, we pray prayerfully I'll be defending it. So perhaps the next time you interview me, I'll be Student Minister Dr. Robert Muhammad.
Okay, I hope so. I'm sure you will.
We're working on it, but you find time, you make time. We're all students. We should always be in the process of learning. And the Prophet of Islam, Prophet Muhammad, said that, if knowledge takes us all the way to the shores of China, we should be in pursuit of knowledge from the cradle to the grave. That's
right. That's what life's about. It's about broadening your experience, learning and helping others, finding your purpose, whatever that purpose is.
That's correct.
And did you feel, I still want to go back to in 1984, when you decided to change from Catholicism, if you were ever still in Catholicism at the time, because I think the minute that priest told you couldn't have a wife, that was it for you in Catholicism. But did there something come over you mentally, spiritually? Did you feel different, or just feel this is what I need to do for me and to help the Black community and to help whoever I can?
Well, let me clarify for your viewing audience, sister, is I never left Jesus, I never left Christ, I left the church, because the church was not addressing the issues of our suffering people. The Nation of Islam offered me 3 things. It offered me identity, the knowledge of myself, to know that I am from the original people of this earth. It offered me God, it offered me righteousness, so I got that. But then it offered me an opportunity to work those 2 things for the liberation and salvation of our people and humanity in general.
Okay, great. Now let's say why we're here today. You are, the Nation of Islam, 20 years ago, did a 1 Million Man March in Washington, D.C. And October the 10th, you're doing another march, which is more than men. When Brother Rashid first mentioned it to me, I said, you all are letting women come and children and families this time, right? And he said, yes. And it's called Justice or Else. If I were not talking to people in the Nation of Islam, I would have thought, just hearing that word, or that term, justice or else, that else means we're going to start rioting, we're going to do a Ferguson on people, we're going to do all these negative things to the communities. Tell me what the or else means to the Nation of Islam.
The or else is this. We're there going to Washington, D.C., not so much for a march, but a gathering and a demonstration to make a demand. The demand is...
Will there be a march or just a gathering?
It's a gathering. We called it a march, but it's really a gathering and a demonstration of us so that we can demand justice. We have no arms. We're unarmed. We bother no man or woman. But backing us, our belief is that God is backing this righteous demand. And America is no different than any nation that's gone before us, whether that be Sodom and Gomorrah, whether that be Egypt, whether it be ancient Babylon or ancient Rome. America is no different. She's not the greatest, she just happens to be the latest. And compared to what God is intending to do, if her people do not receive justice, every nation that's gone before God has raised up a messenger and a warner and told them, thus saith the Lord. There was a saying that all roads led to Rome, and Rome lasted for 1,000 years. It's a great civilization. And it was a time said that in 500 years, it was said that the sun never set on the British Empire. Now the British Empire is just simply that British Isle.
3/4 of the
Right.
world. Right.
America rose to its prominence in less than 200 years in a unipolar world. The Soviet Union and the communist bloc fell, and now it's just America stands on top. But she's not the greatest. God is the greatest.
Oh, of course.
And so now we're at a position and a point now where people who helped build this nation, God hates ingratitude. Black people have given 310 years of free labor to this nation. And somehow we are not appreciated for what we've done. We fought, bled, and died in every war that America has fought. We have served this nation. We have done anything and everything that this nation has asked us to do. All we're asking for now is justice.
Now, you say justice for everybody. This is not just about black people. It's about poor people in America. Do you think that any of the responsibility lies back within the person like you? Go to school, get your education. One thing I always have been very gratitude for the Nation of Islam, it's always about peace. It's never anyone, you know, when you hear about kids getting raped, people getting killed in the black areas, I've never seen a Nation of Islam person ever be the person who did the shooting. And that's something that you teach is peace and live and let other people live, right?
Yep.
Yes, is that correct?
Absolutely, dear sister. The bottom line is that, you know, the Christian scripture says to us, you know, blessed are the peacemakers, for they should be called children of God. We're simply trying to be children of God by making peace.
Right.
But the only way that you can have peace is there must be justice.
Right.
And the only way you can have justice is there has to be truth.
Now, we talked about, and I heard you talk about that great speech you did yesterday about we're going to have an agenda. So we don't have too much time left. Let's talk about people need to fly into D.C. to tell them how they would get to be a part of the gathering.
Well, first of all, they can go online and they can go to justiceorelse.com.
Justiceorelse.com.
And there they can review all of the literature and the information about the march itself. They can register for the march where they can get updates. They can also download an app for Android and also for Apple phones. And they can make a donation, a small donation. Because we're going to finance this march ourselves. That way nobody can tell us who's on stage for that. From there, and then they can also go to justiceorelsesouthwest.com, which encompasses our region. They can get information on Baton Rouge, on Monroe, on Shreveport, or wherever this show may whatever parish this show, all over this state.
Yeah.
They'll be able to go online and they'll be able to connect with a place that's close to them where they can get on the bus, the plane, the train, or roller skate, or start hitchhiking right now to join us on October the 10th. But this is very important.
Now, who will be the speakers? Can you tell me who's on the agenda, the major people?
Well, I'll tell you right now, we know confirmed it's the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan, of course.
A great speaker. Right?
Yes, indeed.
Yes.
But we also I've heard tell that our brother Dr. Cornel West, and there'll be others there.
From Boston. I think
Yes, he's from Harvard.
University.
But this is a march, again, I want to emphasize, it's not just for black men. Right. It's regardless of creed, class, or color. If you want justice, then come and be a part of the march or the gathering.
We thank you for being here, and come on and join October the 10th in Washington, D.C.